Number 10. The High Priest's Mummy. An extremely well-preserved mummy from 2,500 years ago has just been discovered in Egypt, and while this in itself obviously isn't that rare, coming from Egypt and all, it is the way that it was revealed to the world that was very unique. Archaeologists are getting with the times and decided to open it live on the Discovery Channel during a 2-hour-long event. It was the first time in the world that such an impressive mummy was revealed on live television and broadcast across the globe. Did you watch this? The incredible discovery itself was made at the small and remote site of Al Gharifa, about 165 miles from Cairo. The archaeologists found a single tomb with inner burial chambers and a network of ancient tunnels. The hieroglyphs revealed that it belonged to a high priest. They also discovered the remains of an ancient board game, the mummified remains of a family dog, and 4 jars containing organs. There was also a mysterious wax head that was cast to look like the high priest. They'd made a spitting image of his face out of solid wax. Archaeologists don't know much more than that. It's a mysterious necropolis that was first discovered in 1927, although not much attention was ever given to it. They did find the sarcophagus of another high priest back then, but the mummy was missing. So this discovery was much more exciting. Number 9. Viking Warrior Sword. Archaeologists in Norway unearthed the grave of a Viking warrior who died 1,100 years ago. Inside his grave, they found a steel sword placed on his left side. This is unusual because in life, the sword would have been placed on his right hip. Archaeologists say it could have been placed on the wrong side because of the Viking perception of the afterlife. To them, the afterlife was supposed to be a mirror image of the normal world. So whoever buried this warrior may have been accounting for that fact. They thought of everything. Raymond Salvage from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology says the Vikings placed all kinds of grave goods in the opposite spot of where they would normally be placed, all for the purpose of the mirror world. This warrior and his grave were not the only recent discoveries made in Norway either. Archaeologists found this particular grave during routine excavations prior to road work near a small village. They also found 9 other burial mounds, at least 20 graves, a pair of mortuary houses, and 3 impressive boat graves. Most of the people buried in these graves were warriors, entombed with things like spears, axes, and shields. And most of these artifacts were placed on the opposite side so that the dead could have access to them in the mirror world of the afterlife. Number 8. Hangover Prevention Ring. Archaeologists have found a relic unlike anything else in history. It's an ancient hangover prevention ring. Forget about raw eggs, a fresh Bloody Mary, or any other hangover cure you may have heard of. During the Byzantine era of Israel, you could simply put on a hangover ring to cure yourself after a rough night of drinking. The ring was found by archaeologists in the city of Yavne. At first glance, it just looks like an ordinary ring. It has a golden band and a gem of purple amethyst. But where it was discovered gives a clue as to its purpose. It was discovered in the largest winery of the 7th century, just a few hundred feet away from a warehouse that once contained hundreds and hundreds of jars used for storing wine. Amir Golani, an archaeologist associated with the Israel Antiquities Authority, says the amethyst gem in the middle was likely used to prevent the unwanted effects of drinking too much wine. Back in the 7th century, when the Byzantine era was coming to an end and the Islamic period was starting, lots of people used gold rings inlaid with an amethyst stone to cure themselves of ailments. Archaeologists have found other such rings worn by elite Romans as recently as in the 3rd century AD. Amethyst is frequently associated with virtue, especially since it's mentioned frequently in the Bible. The ring was an indication of status and wealth, worn by either a man or a woman. Because it was found so close to the winery, experts are almost certain it was used with the express purpose to prevent hangovers. What do you think? Do you like amethyst? Let me know in the comments below. Number 7. Socks and arm warmers. One of the strangest discoveries to come out of Egypt isn't about mummies or lost statues. It actually has to do with socks and underwear. You may have noticed by now that archaeologists don't really spend a lot of time talking about the clothes worn by ancient Egyptians. Compared to tombs full of treasure and ancient pharaohs, it's just not a popular topic, so it's been largely ignored. But Egyptologist Dr. Alexandra Hallman has taken quite an interest in ancient Egyptian clothes. Through her research, she has found that the Egyptians sort of had an obsession with layers. They would wrap themselves in layers of fabrics, including things like socks, gloves, and underwear. But they didn't wear socks and underwear like you and I do today. They used rectangular pieces of material, either linen or wool, to wrap themselves up in. Things weren't really sewn or fitted. They wrapped themselves up kind of like mummies. For example, they would take a rectangular piece of wool, then wrap it around their feet and up their legs to keep themselves warm. They did the same thing for gloves and underpants, mostly foregoing fitted clothing items like shirts and pants and tunics. Number 6. Stone scalpel brain surgery. Anthropologists with the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences made an astonishing discovery. They were looking at material taken from an excavation back in 2017 near the small Crimean village of Logovskoye. One of the skulls that was removed during the excavation was from a man who had been operated on 5,000 years ago, in the 3rd millennium BC. The researchers found evidence of cranial trepanation, an operation in which a huge area of bone is removed from the human skull. They say the operation was probably done with a stone scalpel as one of the first brain surgeries in human history. It wasn't quite as sophisticated as today, obviously, but it was still surgery. There were 18 other burials where the skull was found, dating from between the Bronze Age to the time of the Scythian warriors. The operation victim was found at the center of one of the burial mounds, buried in a rectangular wooden box with flint arrowheads beside him, indicating his high social status. As for the trepanation surgery, archaeologists have found at least 15 different skulls from around the same time that also had the operation done. But this specimen has proved to be the most fascinating because it seems that the operation was done by a master surgeon. Somebody scraped an area of bone away with a stone tool to leave a very thin layer of bone plate, less than a millimeter thick. They did this without penetrating into the cranial cavity, which could have killed a person. The operation was likely done in the first place for some sort of healing purpose, perhaps to relieve headaches. Number 5. Stonehenge Graves. As construction crews were gearing up to create a controversial road tunnel beside the world wonder of Stonehenge, they made an accidental discovery. The work to build the tunnel revealed ancient graves dating back more than 4,500 years to around the time that Stonehenge was built. One of these ancient graves even contained a baby, while nearby archaeologists found pieces of prehistoric pottery and buried treasure. Many of these finds can be linked directly to the mysterious Neolithic people who built the monument, the Beaker culture. They prospered from between 4,800 to 3,800 years ago, when the first copper tools had just come into practice. In a nearby pit, archaeologists even found the bones of a woman who died in her 20s curled around an ornate beaker, making it pretty obvious that those buried here were part of the Beaker culture. But what exactly did they have to do with Stonehenge? According to Matt Levers, a consultant for Wessex Archaeology, the bodies in the graves were buried at the same time that the main circle of sandstone pillars were erected at the monument. They've also helped give insight to the fact that Stonehenge was built over a very long period of time. It took decades and decades to complete, while people lived nearby and went about their daily life. Number 4. Amaya Canoe. Something amazing was just discovered in Mexico, and for once, it's not a temple or a secret underground lair used by the Aztecs. This time, it's a simple canoe thought to be over 1,000 years old. Researchers discovered the ancient boat, along with other mysterious artifacts, near the ruins of Chichen Itza. It was discovered submerged inside a cenote, which is basically a freshwater sinkhole. The relic measures around 5 feet long and 2 feet wide. It was likely used by the ancient Maya to gather water from the sinkhole since it was fresh. Either that, or it was used so that they could bring offerings into the cenote and then dump them in the hole as sacrifices to their gods. Maybe both. The truth is, researchers just don't know yet. Workers with the National Institute of Anthropology and History were able to tentatively date the canoe to being crafted between 830 and 950 AD. It was discovered during the ongoing construction of the controversial Maya train, meant to be a railway that will connect tourist sites throughout the Yucatan. The big issue is that while connecting some of the major sites, that train is actually destroying previously undiscovered sites of great value. But at the same time, it's finding new and interesting artifacts like this ancient Mayan boat. Number 3. Stone ram heads. In Egypt, at the spectacular archaeological site of Luxor, experts have uncovered new stone ram heads along the Avenue of Sphinxes. There were no bodies found or any other parts of the statues. They simply found giant ram heads, 3 of them to be exact. The discovery was made as part of a restoration attempt to get the Avenue of the Sphinxes back to its former glory. For those who aren't sure what the Avenue is, it's a road over 3,000 years old that connects Karnak Temple and Luxor Temple. It's 1.7 miles long and 23 feet wide, with hundreds of sphinxes on either side, guarding the procession like silent sentinels. But these sphinxes are peculiar because they have ram heads instead of traditional human heads. The sphinxes are perched on bases of sandstone, facing opposite of one another with the avenue between them. They are the guardians that watch over the passage between the two most famous temples in all of Egypt. According to archaeologist Mustafa al-Waziri, one of the newly dug up ram heads was dedicated to King Amenhotep III. It was found with a hole in its head where a cobra should have been placed, signifying Amenhotep III's crown. He ruled between 1390 and 1353 BC, overseeing many of the most important building projects in Egypt. Number 2. The Oldest Doodle. About 73,000 years ago in the Stone Age, somebody was experimenting with a new form of artwork. For the first time, a human decided to try out drawing. Archaeologists recently found the remains of this individual's abstract doodle on the floor of a South African cave. The Stone Age person, or a caveman if you prefer, had made a drawing on the wall of the cave with a makeshift piece of crayon. According to Paul Petit, an archaeologist at Durham University in the United Kingdom, this act marked the beginning of symbolic activity in human society. The discovery was made inside the Blombos cave, where prehistoric Homo sapiens lived between 100,000 and 72,000 years before today. For some bizarre reason, they were some of the most artistic stone people anywhere on Earth. Archaeologists have previously discovered beads made from sea snail shells, say that 5 times fast, and chunks of ochre used to draw geometric patterns. But this newest discovery is of what appears to be a hashtag symbol drawn with ochre, doodled rather than painted. Not only is this one of the first doodles ever done, but it also might just be the first hashtag in history, tens of thousands of years before Twitter made the symbol so popular. Number 1. Romans Battle Dagger. A man with a metal detector discovered a dagger that once belonged to a Roman soldier. The dagger dates back to about 2,000 years ago, and the soldier may have used it in a fierce battle before losing it forever. The man who found it is an amateur archaeologist in Switzerland. The impressive dagger was not the only thing that was discovered on the lost battlefield. It was only one of hundreds of artifacts left behind after a brutal fight between Roman legionaries and Rhaetian warriors. This came at a time when Rome was trying to consolidate their power in the area. The Rhaetian were a group of Alpine warriors who occupied the mountainous areas of Austria, Italy, Germany, and Switzerland. They were literally people of the Alps, and they may have even been related to the Etruscans, those who lived in Italy and held power in the area before the Romans rose up and squashed them. When the Romans needed to expand in the 2nd century BC, they had no choice but to take over the mountain homelands of the Rhaetian. The campaign was successful, though not without its casualties. The unknown warrior's dagger may have been buried on the battlefield purposely when the dust had settled, as a symbolic token of appreciation for the victory. Thanks for watching! Which of these strange discoveries was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below, and remember to hit that subscribe button and check out more of the great archaeology videos from the channel. See you next time! Bye!